Hello, welcome to our monthly review of the things on social media which the accounting profession seems to be particularly irritated by, annoyed by, or just generally chatting about over the last month or so. Joined as ever by Amy Gooden. Amy, what we've picked up on here is the first thing to talk about is the CEST tool, Check Employment Status for Tax tool, a tool which is used and has been for many years to help people decide whether they're employed or self-employed. There have been some changes in this area, perhaps not as many changes as we would have liked, but certainly we need to pay attention.
Well, yes. So this is actually the first time the CEST tool has been updated since November 2019. So it sounded like it could be pretty huge news, and many have been calling for an update to the tool for years. We've seen so many high-profile IR35 and other employment status cases going through the tribunals. However, it's not the exciting news that we were hoping for. HMRC actually said that they've changed the wording to make the tool simpler to use for individuals and traders to receive an accurate outcome. But Dave Chaplin, the CEO of IR35 compliance firm IR35 Shield, has written a blog on AccountingWEB, and he says that the changes to the tool are largely cosmetic.
But there are the various tests, obviously, that we have to help us decide between employed and self-employed. And the revenue seem to have picked up on two of those to do some work, not a lot of work, but some work on those two topics.
Yeah, so the two tests that you're referring to are control and substitution. Control has been the one that's been in the really big cases recently. So the case of the referees, PG Mol, as we refer to it, has fundamentally changed the way control is interpreted from the actual work done by the contractor. So PG Mol was about referees. So from the kind of control aspect, just centering around the refs being on the pitch for 90 minutes and the work they do in those 90 minutes on a Saturday morning, to kind of everything around that. So the fitness tests they have to undergo, what they wear on the way to training, and all of that. So because of that fundamental change, we would have expected the CEST tool have been updated accordingly to clarify some of those points in the questions relating to control. But sadly, that hasn't been the case. What has happened is the guidance and HMRC's manual have been updated. And actually, Dave Chaplin says in the blog on AccountingWEB, he does largely agree with the guidance and the manual. However, I suppose the question is, what is really the point of the tool if the tool just directs you to look at the guidance?
Yes, and of course the point is, if you have to look at the guidance, what's the point of the tool in the first place if you then have to go on to look at the guidance? The first of those two tests was control, and obviously actually on Tax TV last month I talked about a doctor who was controlled, and the big question was, following PGMOL, was there control over the specifics of what a doctor does or the broader picture of their overall working patterns? Some big changes there, some important things to watch out for. While there haven't been the same questions asked in court on substitution, that's the second area that the revenue have chosen to look at.
Yeah, exactly. Again, nothing really in the CEST tool to do with substitution, but it's that manual that I was referring to where there has been clarification on the issue of substitution. Essentially, what Dave Chaplin is saying is that HMRC caseworkers in these cases that go to tribunal, or even ones that are dealt with before they reach tribunal. But in his experience in handling these IR35 cases, HMRC caseworkers consistently disregard the tool and instead focus on the bigger picture. So gathering the facts, reviewing the contracts, and applying the relevant case law. And I suppose that's what we're really recommending as well, because if the tool is still not fit for purpose and the guidance is really just directing people to answer the questions in a certain way to fit in with the guidance, then what's the point in using the tool at all?
And of course, with the revenue saying we should look at the tool, we kind of feel obliged to do so. But there's nothing actually to stop us just saying, no, we're going to cut straight to the guidance and work through it ourselves. That's okay to do, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing in the rules that says that. It's just that if HMRC does decide to investigate your employment status as a worker or contractor, they do say that they will honour the outcome of the CEST tool if you've used it, provided that you didn't give any misleading answers or omit any information. So I suppose it's having that fallback if HMRC did investigate. That's the only real reason for using the tool. But when you're trying to actually decide what is the appropriate employment status and therefore tax treatment of this work, the guidance is far better as a resource than the tool.
So as ever, go back to first principles is quite often the right answer, as it so often is in taxation. The second thing we're going to talk about, and will come as no surprise, I think most months for the next few months it will be in here, is the latest developments in MTD. And we knew that we were going to have a new tier of agency. The Revenue have now confirmed that as well as main agents, we will have supporting agents as well. And this is going to cause all sorts of issues, I suspect, for clients, for accountants, for tax advisors. It's going to get complicated.
Yes, definitely. So Richard Hattersley referred to this on AccountingWEB as one of the missing pieces in the MTD for income tax puzzle. And the article that Richard wrote suggested that this would be come as relief, this news to those in the profession. So this news is that HMRC have sorted out the issues in terms of how they can allow multi-agent access, so how people can have a main agent but also one or more supporting agents all working on their tax submissions. So why might you want multi-agent access? Well, obviously the quarterly updates are a main feature of MTD, but the information that needs to be submitted quarterly doesn't need to be anything more complicated than just the quarterly bookkeeping. And many accountants have been rightly quite concerned about the extra work and the extra time it's going to be involved in completing those that kind of ongoing bookkeeping and submitting those quarterly updates for their clients. So multi-agent access will allow a bookkeeper or perhaps a letting agent for property income to complete and submit the quarterly bookkeeping, so the quarterly updates, and then the main agent just needs to come along at the end of the year and tidy it all up and turn it into a tax return. So to all intents and purposes, that main agent will just be doing what they've always done at the year end, and having that multi-agent access will allow somebody else to do the kind of new legwork throughout the year.
And one of the big issues here, as far as I can understand it, is that if you have multiple supporting agents in the same area of tax, let's say property income, then if different people are able to put different data into your MTD system, then they will have access to everything else within that specific area. So people will be able to see figures that they didn't actually generate themselves if you're not careful.
Exactly, yeah. So in the case of a client who might have some trading income and some property income, technically they could have a supporting agent for each of those two different types of income, so two different supporting agents. They could have a different supporting agent for each property. They might have properties in Manchester, Brighton and Bristol, and they might have a different letting agent in each of those places. And each of those letting agents could be a supporting agent for that client. So you can have multiple different supporting agents for your property income. You could also have a separate supporting agent for your trading income. And as far as we're aware, those different letting agents could all see all property income. So they could have all the information on the other properties that the client owns, which the client might not want. They might not want each letting agent to have sight of the data of the other properties that they own. They also, this is not clear, but there is a concern, it shouldn't be the case, but when everybody's putting all data into all the same place, there is a worry, what if the property income supporting agents can see what the trading income supporting agents are putting in as well? And it just, in terms of data sharing, it all becomes a little bit worrying or could become a bit concerning.
And of course, the main agent is going to have all sorts of problems potentially, in that the revenue will tell the main agent some things, the supporting agent some things to do with the supporting agent will be told only to the main agent. And so there's going to have to be some fairly open conversations across a number of people.
At the moment, HMRC's guidance says that supporting agents can submit quarterly updates, but they won't receive notifications of any penalty points for late submission. And these will go to the main agent. So you could end up with a situation where the bookkeeper doesn't actually realise that they've incurred penalty points for late submission of quarterly updates on behalf of the client. Only the main agent can see this, and then the main agent is saying to the client, oh look, this bookkeeper's rubbish, they're incurring you all these penalties. And the client goes to the bookkeeper, and the bookkeeper says, I had no idea about all of these penalties. So it's really important to make sure that these agents are communicating with each other, and some just won't want to or won't have time to be communicating with these other random agents that they've never even heard of. And indeed, that's what a lot of the comments on AccountingWEB seem to be saying on this topic. Northeast Accountant has actually decided to decline acting as main agent for any clients who opt to appoint a supporting agent. They say, we're going to keep it simple. We only need to worry about options 1 or 3, which is client doing their own bookkeeping and quarterly updates, or them as an agent doing everything. They don't want to worry about the other option of a supporting agent doing the bookkeeping and quarterly updates and them doing the year end, because they say the supporting agent they may never have heard of, but they as main agent would have to deal with their mistakes, their penalties, etc. And they commented that with access to HMRC virtually impossible, imagine the nightmare of dealing with the potential problems created by others.
So there is a real risk here of too many cooks spoiling the broth. One of the other issues, of course, main agents will face is that, we're all hopefully very good at filling in forms. We'll certainly try our best when doing so. But one wrong tick in the wrong box, and you could easily delete a person as an agent and create a whole range of problems.
Yeah, so there are very clear roles that the main agent and the supporting agent have, and things that the main agent and the supporting agent can or can't do. So essentially, the main agent can do almost anything a client can do, but the supporting agent is quite limited in terms of what they can do. As you mentioned, a client can have multiple supporting agents, but they can only have one main agent. And when that main agent is authorized, that will automatically remove any existing authorization that another main agent may have. Now, the problem here is, as you say, we all think that we're good at filling in forms and we do it to the best of our abilities, but there is this real risk that you hit the wrong button as a client and some random lettings agent in Bermondsey becomes your main agent, and the actual main agent won't even be notified. So they're only going to find out when they go in to file the tax returns at the year end and they realize they don't have access anymore. So we really need to make sure that we're reviewing this frequently, double and triple checking that we still have that main agent access that we need, and that somebody hasn't accidentally signed all of that power over to somebody else.
Yeah, so certainly having systems in place is fundamental. And I guess the message is communication. We need to be able to speak to all these different people, and having that open communication in place will be fundamental.
Yeah, exactly. And this is open communication about something that this community of people have really already decided is a complete write-off. If I refer back to the Richard Hattersley piece, and a regular contributor to AccountingWEB, fact checker, commented, the introduction of multi-agent will come as a relief to those in the profession. And fact checker says, really? Without it, even HMRC admitted that MTD for IT wouldn't work. which was fine by me and many of those in the profession. So it just really shows that feeling amongst the community of accountants, that MTD is something they really don't want to face, and that they were really hoping maybe if HMRC didn't manage to fit this piece into the puzzle, the whole thing might be called off or at least delayed. So yeah, the idea that these people are going to be openly communicating with supporting agents and doing their best to kind of make the whole thing work is a question mark.
Thanks, Amy, very much. That's all for this month, but keep posting on the various social media channels, and maybe next time we'll be talking about something that you've been irritated by, frustrated by, or just generally curious about over the last month or so. Bye-bye.